world top destinations. Again, last month we were able to discuss some of this, but at this time, we will be discussing this in the context of understanding how 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 the countries benefited from tourism in terms of their economy. So again, I'm presenting you the information taken from the report of the United Nations World Tourism Organization. This time, we're going to take note how the countries benefited, and you will also have an idea on how even the Philippines and the region Asia Pacific has also benefited. But all the information that will be presented to us this afternoon are all information based on the 2019 report. So this is a 2020 United Nations report from the data collected from 2018 to 2019. So this is pre-pandemic period. PPP, pre-pandemic period. Okay, so let's start with international tourism trends. In 2020, again, there was a growth of 4%, which resulted into a 1.460 trillion total international tourist arrivals. There was also an increase of 3% in the tourism receipts. And can you still remember what it means when we say tourism receipts? This is the totality of the expenses incurred by the tourists when they visited the destination. For example, we are all of the students, including me, are all located here in the Philippines. So this is an all Filipino class right now. So tourism receipts are the expenses brought by the foreigners who came to the Philippines, visited the Philippines, stayed here, and then they spent for accommodation, food, transportation, and all. When we totaled everything, so that's it. For international, we have sorry, I have to correct my statement. For the international tourists, we have 1.4 billion, and for the tourism receipts, we have 1.4 trillion. We have 1.4 trillion dollars, not peso, so dollars. If you want to compute that, then that means you have to convert it into 48, 49, or 50. So that is how it grew. Now, take note here on the right side. Let's just simply start from, say, 2010. You will see the changes in terms of receipts and in terms of its GDP. Now, moving forward, here's the overall look of the 2019 growth in tourism. So, did you notice the table on the right below? You will notice a very good escalation in terms of arrivals, in terms of receipts. Now, let's discuss that region by region so that we will have a very good appreciation of the improvement. So, say for example, before we will do that, let's consider this. International tourism is number 3 in the world's third largest export category. First, fuels. Second, chemicals. And third, international tourism. Fourth, automotive products. And then fifth, food. Of course, this is different right now because of the pandemic, but this is the data prior to the pandemic. It could be reversed, right? It could be that at this point, food would be on top because of the need, and because there was no travel and other movements for tourism. So again, we have a generation of 1.5 trillion US dollar receipts in destinations, and then a USD 250 billion on passenger transportation. Take note that when computing tourism receipts, the expenses on transportation from their point of origin to the destination is not yet included. For example, if Mr. Parr will travel with his family going to Hong Kong for 5 days, their tourism receipts will only include all their expenses when they arrive in Hong Kong, not including the airfare from Manila to Hong Kong. So, then that is the reason why, if you notice, we have right now here in front of us a USD 1.7 trillion generation. That is 1.5 trillion plus 255 billion of passenger transportation. That is the cross-country transportation expenses. Okay. Next, economic impact of tourism in some countries. What you are seeing right now is the economic impact of tourism in some countries. You can see the Philippines in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the number 9, no? It made mention here that tourism is a key economic sector in many advanced and emerging economies. Now, what is number 1? Notice Macau. Have you been to Macau? Have you tasted lutong Macau? That's what they say here in the Philippines. We have what we call lutong Macau. But anyway, notice the economic contribution of tourism, direct tourism GDP. And there, 48% in Macau. So imagine how tourism is really supporting the economy of this country. And so is the Philippines, with 9%. And so is the Philippines. Now, in terms of tourist arrivals, take note that the top 10 destinations receive 40% of the global arrivals. Imagine, out of the global arrival, 40% is in the top 10 destinations. What's number 1? France. Yeah. So number 1 would be France. Second is Spain. Third, United States, US. Fourth, China, Italy, Turkey. Wow, Turkey. Mexico, Thailand, Germany, and of course, the UK. So this is the data from 2018 to 2019 in terms of arrivals. Quick question and also like a review. If France is the number 1 in terms of world's top arrival, does that automatically represent that France will also be the highest or the number 1 in terms of tourism receipts? Can you remember our discussion last month? Is it automatic that if you have the most number of tourists arriving in your country, then you have the most tourism receipt as well? Who would like to answer that? Mr. Parr?
No, it will not guarantee that if you have the most number of arrivals, you are the one who will have the most number of income, or the top earner in tourism industry.
Okay, so it's not a default, no? It's not automatic. Now we can see that in the next slides there. So according to this slide, the top earner, quoting from the words of Mr. Parr, is what? United States of America. United States of America. Now let's just go back to the previous slides for our comparison. Oops. Oops. Ayun. Yan. You see? In terms of tourist arrival, the top is what? France only, US is only number 3. But you will notice that now it's the other way around. United States is number 1 in terms of tourism receipts, and France is in number 3. Notice Thailand. In terms of tourist arrival, Thailand is number 8. In terms of receipts, Thailand is in number 4 globally. It could be that because of shopping, medical tourism, and so on and so forth. Right? You see? So take note of that. Take note of that. What does that mean? That simply because you see so many visitors in a destination, it means that they are making a lot of money. Since Jelly here and Rika are from the north, you are from Pangasinan, most likely you might think of 100 Islands or Alaminos. If you go to look up in a summer, during summer, of course, prior to the pandemic, you will see so many people visiting 100 Islands. But that doesn't mean that Alaminos City is making a good it has a very good tourism receipt out of the people. It doesn't mean like that. Why? Because the people who are visiting 100 Islands are there for 1 day only. They don't, not everyone stay in Alaminos Island overnight. And secondly, what did you notice? If they go to 100 Islands, they bring their own food. They don't buy in Alaminos, right? They don't buy in Alaminos. So while 100 Islands has many visitors in terms of arrivals, they have a very low figure in tourism receipts. But take note of this famous destination in the Philippines called El Nido in Palawan. There are only few people who goes there. In fact, the aircraft who service tourists from Manila to El Nido, I think is only 18-seater. Only few people. But does that mean that they don't make much money? No. Accommodation itself, if they are say 3 days, 4 nights, they will have to spend around 250,000 already just for accommodation and food. Not to mention all the other activities there. I think the flight from Manila to El Nido is around 14,000 pesos. That's the round trip flight already, no? And you cannot take Philippine Airlines or Cebu Pacific. You have to take that chartered flight, specific charter that brings tourists to El Nido. Okay, so before I forget, I saw a message from Miss Ta. All students, please join our Instagrad community. This way, if there are some announcements, then you will be able to get all the updates and announcements. And also, if you have concerns, you can also reach out to the admission of LIBT. Okay, now let's go from one region to the other. Just a summary so that we will have an idea, and we will also be able to appreciate what's the growth and what's the movement of tourism in Asia and the Pacific. Let's go first, Europe. International tourist arrivals, it says here, 744 million. That is an improvement of 4% from the previous data. International tourism receipts in 2019, 576 billion US dollars. Billion US dollars. It's Europe, right? So they have what we call the 51% share, and then we have the 39% share for the international tourism receipts. How about Asia and the Pacific? In this region, or in our region, we also have the 25% share of tourist arrival in the global arrivals. And we also had an increase of 4% to compare it in 2018, 362 million. Tourism receipts, we have 443 billion US dollar, an increase of 1%, or this data represents 30% share in the tourism receipt of the global activity. How about in the Americas? There's a 219 million arrivals with 342 billion tourism receipts in 2019. Africa, 70 million arrivals, 38 billion in USD of tourism receipts. In the Middle East, if you notice, there is a higher rate of improvement, which is 8%. So it means that they are improving, of course, but that is before the pandemic. So there are 65 million arrivals in the Middle East, and then 81 billion US dollars of international tourism receipts.